So, it's been a few days since the last video, for me at least, and I came to two realizations in the time in between. The first one is, I'm starting to get the sneaking suspicion that Kent Hovind is illiterate. And I don't mean that as a cheap put-down or a joke about how stupid he is. How stupid he is an established fact, but I'm really starting to think the man is completely unable to read. Allow me to make my case. First off, this book, this dissertation, and the previous one, the 1991 and the 2013 books, whatever pamphlets you want to call them, were not written by Kent Hovind. If you remember, Miss Kim Van Gundy wrote the first one, and Kent Hovind borrowed his parents' computer, as he says in the dedication page. Why would he borrow a computer and then have someone type out the entirety of the document, the 1991 document, on a typewriter, if he were not illiterate? Second point, the new book, the 2013 book, is made by a contingent of 8 individuals. Now, I understand that many of them might be graphics team and that kind of stuff, but all 8 of them, I'm guessing someone wrote it down. Third point to make, if you remember from the Why Do People Laugh at Creationists series, Kent Hovind has these presentations where he puts slides up on a big board behind him, and he's talking about the origin of the universe, his conservation of angular momentum complaint, where he says the entire universe was compressed into a dot, and then the dot started spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, and then it exploded. If he had just done this and looked over his shoulder at his own board, the slide on the screen very clearly lists the birth of our sun, not of the universe. Now, someone, including Kent Hovind, must have put that slide up on the screen behind him. At any point in time, if Kent Hovind so much as glanced over his shoulder and read, he would have seen that it's actually talking about the sun. He put it himself on his own screen. It was there behind him. He's talking about the birth of the universe, and it's actually a slide about the birth of the sun. Now, like I said, maybe it's not him who did the slides, but if I'm right, it could not be him that made the slides, because I really do think Kent Hovind cannot read. And it makes sense if you think about it some more. What evidence do I have? Absolutely nothing, but hey, we're evaluating Kent Hovind. Since when has a lack of evidence mattered? A second realization I came to is a point I failed to make in the previous video being about the evidence for the flood. As I said, it's been a few days for me since that video. I haven't watched it regularly since. Once as I was uploading to see if I needed annotations, that kind of stuff. What I usually do. But upon reflection, I don't actually recall Kent Hovind providing any evidence for the flood. He talked about the biblical story of the flood, and he presented the usual bullshit arguments about how science is wrong about this, and this, even though it's not, and he is. But he didn't actually make a case for the flood. He just reported what the Bible says and what he himself thought, his magical floating ice shield thing. So, a point that I should have made in the last video, but it was so painful I just forgot, and well, my apologies. I'm making it now. Hopefully that suffices. Now, on to, let me click here, Daniel's amazing end-time prophecies. Now, a little bit of a confession. I predicted that this one would be pretty hard to do in the way I usually did, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't making a video for nothing. So I read the entire thing, and did a little bit of research this time for this one specifically. I was worried that it would be a list of prophecies and how, look, this prophecy came true, and look, another prophecy, that one came true also. It would have been a boring video, and I wanted to just skip it if that was the case. But I found enough to actually warrant addressing and research. So I actually have a bunch of tabs open on various websites for exactly this thing. So I'm all excited. You should be too. If you are, you're an idiot, because I'm just talking about how Kent Hovind is an idiot. What's wrong with you? So onwards, finally, after I don't know how long. It starts out with the usual timelines thing, presenting that he's now on Chapendixter 3. I've decided to call them Chapendixters also in the intervening time. It's kind of a mix between chapter and appendix, so Chapendixters. We'll be using that for the rest of the series unless you tell me it's stupid. In which case, I agree. In about 605 BC, Daniel, possibly one of the king of Israel's sons, and Bible quote to support this, was a teenager in Israel when King Nebuchadnezzar's armies from Babylon, Iraq today, and that is in fact in parenthesis, the only reason to put that educational content, that Iraq today is Babylon back then, is because Kent Hovind wants to drive the point home, there's scary Muslims there! I mean, it's Kent Hovind. Educational content can never be provided without an ulterior motive, after all. This will come up a few times, and I'll make sure to point it out for you. King Nebuchadnezzar's armies came and conquered the land as part of God's judgment for Israel's sin. Now, what sin was that? Not having looked at any of the Bible passages for this one, because why would I? Who cares what the Bible has to say? Kent here is saying that some guy named Daniel is possibly the son of the king of Israel. He doesn't know who this kid is, but he knows he's a teenager. And he lives in Israel. Why? Because reasons. And the armies of Babylon came and conquered the Israelis for the sin of something. Jeremiah and other prophets had tried to warn the people to repent, to no avail. Amazing how prophets never seem to be able to convince anyone of anything. It's like they don't matter. Probably because they don't. Daniel was taken captive to Babylon along with many thousands of others to train to be one of the king's wise men or advisors. So let me get this straight. You have an army. You want to stick it to Jews. You march your army across the desert, murder a bunch of people, give him the what for, and you take thousands of kids to train them to be the king's wise men or advisors. Never once in your head do you think maybe one of these kids is going to resent me and try to kill me. This story is already consumed by the plot holes. I'm just saying. While Daniel was still in training, because of course, why would Daniel be in training? Because he was taken captive. Why was he taken captive? Because he was the son of one of the kings of Israel? Or the king of the Israel's sons? One of the sons of the king of Israel? I finally got that sentence right. What about the other thousands of kids? Couldn't he just be some random schmuck? Just, why does he have... It probably doesn't make any difference because the whole thing is bullshit, but, consistency, a thing that religious people have never heard of. While Daniel was still in training, the king had a dream that scared him badly, but he forgot the dream. The entire story is found in Daniel 2, because, of course, since it's in the Bible, it must be true. When no one could tell him what he had dreamed and the meaning of it, the king ordered all the wise men, including those in training like Daniel, to be killed. He needed anger management classes. This from the douchebag, and this is a, the parentheses thing is Kent Hovind adding his 5 cents that he doesn't actually own because it's all God's property. This from the guy who believes in a God who has such anger management issues that he murders everybody on the fucking planet by drowning them because he's incompetent at his job. You might want to watch the heresy there, Kent. Just saying. And of course, if you go out and you kidnap thousands of kids in order to train them to be your wise men and advisors, because that makes sense, well, of course, if they can't tell you what the dream you had was or what it means, because dreams totally mean something now, right? Because they can't tell you what it is, you just murder the fucking lot of them, including the ones that weren't kidnapped children and have served you for years, because the king has to be an evildoer. And the really stupid bit is coming up in a bit. Hang on for it. Daniel and his 3 friends, the same ones who were later thrown into the fiery furnace, asked for more time, and God revealed to Daniel both the dream and the meaning of it. I have an alternative hypothesis for what Daniel did here. Oh shit, I'm gonna die. Quick, make something up. The stupid bit is that none of the allegedly many thousands of others thought to do that. Plot holes. Just saying. God had shown the king the future of the world in this dream that Daniel made up to save his ass. There would be 5 earthly empires or kingdoms, followed by the final kingdom of God on earth. So 6, not 5. This prophecy, it was a dream, was presented to the king in the dream. And actually, it was not a dream. It was a thing that Daniel made up to save his ass. I almost forgot there for a second, because Kent is really confusing. This prophecy was presented to the king in the dream in the form of a giant statue of a man. So get this. Hundreds of books and commentaries have been written on the dream and its meaning, so I will just give a quick summary here. Because when you have a stupid bullshit story, anyone can say whatever the hell they want about it, and that's important, according to Kent Hovind. The statue had a head of gold to represent the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar. His Babylonian kingdom lasted an incredible amount of time, from 605 BC to about 539 BC. About 70 years, give or take. When it was conquered by the Medes and the Persians, Persia today is Iran. There's scary Muslims there! A combined kingdom represented by the chest and arms of silver in the image. So, imagine for a second this statue. It has a head made out of gold. The chest and the arms are made out of silver. Now, you can't really cast a statue to have a head of gold and arms and a chest of silver, because either it would create an alloy and they would mix, or you would have one piece sitting on top of another piece just loosely. I don't think they had invented arc welding at this point. It gets better. Hold on, folks. The Medo-Persian Empire, and I don't know if any of these dates are accurate, and I don't care because it's Kent Hovind, so I wouldn't trust him if he said the sky was blue tomorrow. The Medo-Persian Empire was inferior in many ways to the Babylonian Empire, which is why they were able to conquer it, just as silver is inferior to gold. According to what metric? Do you think that there is value or superiority? If you cut a gold ingot in half, do you think it will be better than silver in the 2 pieces? Inferior to silver how? Superior to silver how? It's just... They're metals. They have their purposes. Now, silver can tarnish. Gold doesn't oxidize, or isn't oxidate, as much as silver does. In fact, it doesn't, as this white gold ring has never needed cleaning because it just doesn't rust the way that silver does. But inferior to gold? It's inferior because people value gold more than silver. It's not intrinsically inferior. Just like, you know, saying the empire that conquered the stronger one was... this entire thing just makes no sense. But I'm sure many Christians are there nodding and like, oh yes, silver is inferior to gold. I know, my cross is made out of gold. That's important. What was that thing about the meek, the shall inherit the gold, I guess? Some have noted that each metal listed top to bottom, and now he's getting ahead of himself, gold, silver, brass, and iron is less valuable than the one above it, according to Kent Hovind and the idiots at the time, I guess, and is less electrically conductive, more easily corroded, less flexible, more brittle, and stronger. I don't actually know that brass is stronger than iron. Could be wrong. I know a lot of weapons were made out of brass before the advent of steel, so maybe that's the case. But is silver weaker than iron? Does it make a better blade, less brittle? Could you stab someone with a silver weapon better than a... I'm not a metallurgist, but I'm sure that's not really relevant. I mean, sure, okay, people had used these metals for a while, so maybe they figured out the properties. And Daniel, in a desperate plea to save his life in this made-up story that never actually happened, knowing, because he was training to be a wise man or an advisor, knowing the different values of different metals and the different attributes of them, could have just manufactured this story with relevance, but less valuable. Well, here's an idea. Let's say you want to make steel. You have a gold bar. Do you think maybe your gold bar would be less valuable than iron? Value is a transient property. This idea that gold has magical value all above and beyond all other metals, that's a libertarian concept, and it's bullshit. And again here, because Kent Hovind is illiterate and someone who wrote this for him as he was speaking, and Kent Hovind is an idiot. Might be a sermon in that, the different metals being more conductive and whatever. Complete bullshit either way. The Third World Empire, represented by the belly and thighs of the brass in the image. So we have the upper chest, this part here, and I can't go up enough to show you my stomach, but this part here with the rib cage is silver, and the two arms sticking out are silver also. And there's a head made out of gold balancing on it, just wobbling around with every breeze of wind that goes through wherever this imaginary statue was. And the chest and arms are also sitting on a piece of brass, this time, that represents the stomach and the thighs, I imagine down to the knees. So now you have the head, the upper body with the two arms sticking out, and basically this, up to the knees. That means the legs are iron. We'll get to that in a second. It gets even dumber. Was the Greek Empire of Alexander the Great, the belly part. This empire lasted from about 323 BC to about 146 BC, meaning a lot longer than Nebuchadnezzar's superior empire. The Fourth World Empire, represented by the legs of iron, two freestanding legs made out of iron, upon which are balanced a belly. There we go. A belly and two thighs made out of brass, upon which is a chest with two arms sticking out, like this, and a head of gold. Dumbest statue ever, but it doesn't stop there. Oh no. Was the Roman Empire. The two iron legs are the Roman Empire, which split into two, the Eastern and Western empires, because hindsight is 20/20. Just as the legs are the longest part of the image, except for the thighs. The Roman Empire lasted the longest. The armies of Rome were called the Iron Legions of Rome. Were they? I'm not a historian. I don't actually know, and I didn't bother researching this because it's completely irrelevant. The fact that they are called the Iron Legions of Rome much later, after Nebuchadnezzar is dead, and someone made up this story after the fact, not really relevant. Some have argued that this empire never really ceased to exist, but rather morphed, changed at the knees. Get it? Because there's two iron legs sticking up to the knees. It morphed at the knees into brass. Into the Roman Catholic Church Empire. Thanks for recognizing that the church is actually an oppressive, and will morph again, turning at the ankles. Because if you're going to go with a stupid metaphor, keep at it. It'll make it better. Into the final kingdom. Interesting theory. No, it is neither interesting nor a theory. Kent Hovind. The last human world empire is represented in the image by its feet and 10 toes, wait for it, which are iron mixed with clay. So, the metals listed top to bottom, does that include the clay? Clay's not a metal, Kent! I know he's not actually listing it in his gold, silver, brass, and iron, but, yeah. Analogies or euphemisms or whatever the fuck you want to call that don't really become better when you forget to include details to make your thing look more intelligent or more meaningful or more relevant. The materials that this statue is made of includes clay. Where is it in everything else Kent Hovind made up? Did he think the Bible was singing to itself, one of these things is not like the other, one of these things is not the same? Because that's fucking stupid, and I'm sure you agree. If you don't, make your case. I'm not perfect. Just as iron will not bond to clay, no shit, the final empire shall be partly strong and partly broken. Name one empire that has not been partly strong and partly broken in this list of risen and fallen empires. Oh right, we're supposed to be expecting the end of the world in the future, not in the past, based on that kind of poor thinking. Okay, right, sorry, my mistake. There are 3 basic theories about this coming final empire, and this is where we finally start to get to the point where Kent hints at the point he's trying to make. The New World Order. That's right, Kent Hovind believes in the NWO. Not the... Is there like a musical group that goes by that name? Not that one, if there is. 1, it will be a revival of the Roman Empire where 10 European countries try to band together, maybe like the European Common Market. The 10 is significant for some dumber thing coming later. 2, it will be an attempted union of 10 world regions, like a North American region, Asia-Pacific region, etc. 10 again, it's significant. But you'll see the uncertainty goes down from the first one, this one, because he really wants to prop up his third point. 3, it will be an alliance of 10 Muslim countries that surround and hate Israel and have for 4,000 years. So it will be Muslim nations that hate Israel and have for 4,000 years. In the future, they will have hated Israel for 4,000 years. My Kent Hovind is illiterate thesis continues to grow. So why is he doing this thing, where he's pointing out how scary Muslims are? It's because his study has led him to believe that this final 10-nation empire will be 10 Muslim nations, since they all hate each other and fight all the time, just as God said they would in Genesis 16:12. Motherfucker, God didn't say jack shit about the Muslims in Genesis, because 1, God doesn't exist, 2, the Muslims didn't exist at the time either, and 3, it's a fucking made-up fairy tale, and it says nothing about the world as it is. They will never really bond, just as iron and clay will not bond with each other, which this is part of the reason why I think this entire Daniel narrative is entirely made up. Well, more made up than the made up that it already is. Which is like just a pile of made ups just rampaging, I guess. It's just so crazy. Since his kingdom will have areas where enforcement of their rules and policies, like maybe taking a mark to buy and sell. And there's a passage to Revelation 13 verse 14, or chapters 13 and 14. What? Taking a mark will be weak or broken. Since his kingdom will have areas where enforcement of the rules and policies will be weak or broken, I have long prayed for God to put me in some place where it is broken. Well, of course you would, Kent, 'cause you're in jail. You fucking asshole. Thanks for another fine setup. Yeah, we, atheists, and other rational people, if we believed in a God and in the power of prayer, which we don't, but if we did, we would also have long prayed to God, whatever it might be, to put you someplace broken. 'Cause, goddamn, you're an idiot. In the dream, the king saw a stone cut out of the mountain without hands that smote the image on the feet. What image? It's iron and clay. There's no image. Kent, you forgot to mention something, you illiterate bastard. Crumbled it to powder that the wind blew away. Because if you take a rock and hit iron with it, it will turn into powder and blow away. This stone then grew to become a great... I'm looking at my camera feed, and my chair sinks a lot. So there we go. That's better. This stone then grew to become a great mountain that filled the whole earth, because, as you know, if you take care of your pet rock and water it every day, it will grow to become a big, strong mountain. This man claims to have been a science teacher. He believes in magical floating ice. His doctoral dissertation reads like a grade schooler's essay on what he did last summer, as I've said before. It would not surprise me to find out that he also thinks rocks can grow up into mountains. Hey, he rejects tectonic uplift, so, why the fuck not? This undoubtedly represents Jesus. This magical mountain from a rock thing represents Jesus in the Old Testament, since he is the stone that the builders rejected. Now, it doesn't represent Jesus because you're talking about the Old Testament, and Jesus is a spin-off cult that has no basis in the Jewish prophecies. This stone that was cut out of the mountain was specifically chosen for the purpose of smiting the feet of the statue and crumbling the foundation to dust and blowing it away. So it's not exactly a stone that the builders rejected. And if you do actually buy into the Jesus narrative, Jesus is put on earth for the express purpose of being nailed to a dead tree, so it's not like anything rejected it. Him, the fictional character, it. And the rock upon which the church is built, not Peter the tiny stone, as the Catholic Church teaches. Right, because when Jesus says, I name you Peter, the foundation, the rock upon which my church will be built, that's not what Jesus actually says. As those evil Catholics are saying, lying. Because, of course, those 10 nations that hate each other, that can't be Christians who all hate other denominations, all 33,000 of them. No, it has to be Muslims, because reasons. This theme of accusing other nations while simultaneously being guilty of the same thing will become apparent and repeated in this chapter. It'll repeat itself quite often. The stone crushing the kingdoms of this world happens in the days of the last 10 king empire. When was the last 10 king empire? A long time ago, if there was ever such a thing. I mean, there could have been, but kings were kind of a contentious lot. They'd like to kill each other and, steal their land and fuck the peasants, that kind of thing. The days of the last 10 king empire is probably a fucking long time ago, which is why end of the world prophecies have existed for a fucking long time. 600 years later, the Apostle John picked up the story where Daniel left off and added even more detail. He made shit up, is what you should be hearing here, because that's what happened. Apostle John made shit up on top of the old story with the benefit of hindsight. That's me adding it, not Kent, because that's honest. Adding even more detail in the book of Revelation, where he uses a beast with 10 horns. That's where the 10 comes in. A beast with 10 horns. So you have the Old Testament story of Daniel's stupid prophecies, this made-up bullshit story about a impossible statue, and some douchebag later comes in and writes an even dumber story, and there's a beast with 10 horns, so Daniel was talking about an alliance of 10, or something. In this dream and the statue image, Daniel gives a broad overview of the 5 world empires from about 600 BC to the end of time, with the benefit of hindsight. Because I don't think any of this was written before. I keep calling it the Old Testament. I don't actually know if Daniel is the Old Testament. If it's the New Testament, this is even worse. But, I'm giving it the benefit of actually being some time in the past, although it could be set in the past and written later, which I assume, if the whole Roman Empire stuff is accurate, which why would I? Then it's probably written with the benefit of hindsight, not foreknowledge. Daniel's second vision, that's a section. It starts out with, the first vision was actually the king's, but Daniel interpreted it. No. The king had a bad dream and then murdered a bunch of people, and one guy, in a desperate bid to save his ass, made something up, which is a more rational explanation than the one Kent Hovind buys into. Again, a more rational explanation than that one, the one I came up with, is that it's all fake. Which is, parsimony, just saying. Daniel also had other visions we are not addressing here, because why would you? I mean, you're only trying to make his case about other visions. Why would you address them? In Daniel 7, he had a vision where the 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea, and 4 beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. There's that 4 chimeras from Revelations again. In the vision, Daniel saw a lion with eagle's wings, a bear with 3 ribs in its mouth, a leopard with 4 wings, and a terrible beast with iron teeth and 10 horns. Just a few paragraphs earlier, Kent Hovind said that the Apostle John made up the story about the beast in Revelation. And here he's saying that Daniel saw it. Not much of an addition if you just repeat the same thing. Or is Kent lying again? It's hard to tell with this asshole. Bible scholars have speculated on the meaning of this passage for centuries, and why wouldn't they? As I said before, if you have a stupid story based on nothing, you can just make up any interpretation you want. Some think the 4 beasts in this chapter represent a rehash of the first 4 empires from Babylon to the Roman Empire. Because, why not? while other thinks it is all yet in the future. Of course they do. Because the people in the past would have assigned the fall of the world, the end of the world, to the future. And as time went on, they became more and more wrong. Just like the people who believe Jesus will be coming back in about 5 minutes. They've been wrong 210 million times, and why stop now when you're about to win, right? And here Kent says the tagline for everything he has ever produced. It's in here, and I can only assume Kent, in a brief moment of insanity, said the truth. I'm no scholar, but here's my opinion. Like I said, this one sentence fragment represents all of Kent Hovind's oeuvre in its entirety. He's no scholar, but here's his opinion. I, and many Bible scholars, so it's not your opinion then, Kent, is it? You just borrowed it, stole it. I mean, you steal things, that's what you do. You stole it from smarter people than you. Well, I say smarter, I mean less intelligent, but more intelligent seeming, or less disingenuous perhaps, or just less crazy. It's hard to guess because, of course, Bible scholars is left completely blank. It's just, oh, there's this guy that I'm making up. He's a Bible scholar. He agrees with me because Kent Hovind already has a couple imaginary friends. Why not add some more? I think the 4 beasts are 4 world powers that will strive for world power. Domination? Question mark. Yes, they are 4 world powers that will strive, whatever the, little bracket, the quote marks are for. Strive is a real word. You can use it in this context. It's fine, Kent. 4 world powers that will strive for world power. The thesis continues. Kent Hovind is illiterate. At the end of time, because of course when the world ends, that will be the end of time. It'll just pause, the credits roll, that's it. Before the one with 10 horns finally becomes dominant. Wait, the 4 beasts include the one with 10 horns. But wait, the 4 beasts are 4 world powers, but the one with 10 horns, are these literal horns? Or are they figurative world powers with horns and iron? What the fuck is a world power with iron teeth and 10 horns? This entire thing collapses in on itself once you start to realize that Kent Hovind is just exchanging words wherever he seems to find them appropriate in order to construct this absolutely insane mess of nonsense. I think the 4 beasts are interpreted as follows. The lion, sometimes standing like a man with eagle's wings, represents England, whose symbol has always been the lion. 8 people and 1 illiterate douchebag in jail worked on this book, and they couldn't proofread whose symbol has always been the lion. How incompetent can you get? I mean, the typos are fewer in this, whatever you want to call this farce, this abomination, this affront to good sense. The spelling mistakes, the grammatical errors, the poorly copy-pasted fractions or fragments of appendixers, there's fewer of them, but still, I mean, when you have 8.5 people working on a book, do some spell checking, for fuck's sake. So the lion with eagle's wings represents England, whose symbol has always been the lion. It hasn't always been the lion. It certainly started at some point. I think after the point where Richard the Lionheart started using the 3 leopards rampant on his crest, his coat of arms. Yes, they're not lions, they're leopards. In heraldic terminology, they are leopards, not lions. The coat of arms of England, and here's where I did a little bit of research. The coat of arms of England does, in fact, have a lion on it. A lion gardant, meaning he's standing and facing the viewer of the coat. He's also on the too sinister side, meaning he's looking... No, he is on the sinister side. He is too dexter, meaning he's looking... He would be looking to the right, sorry, but he's actually facing the camera, but he's facing... His body's turned to the right of the crest, and I'm turning left, but it's actually on that side for you on the... God damn it, I'm confused now. It's confusing with the camera, I'm sorry. The really weird thing here is that he's showing a coin, a really old coin from... Is the date visible on there? It's probably in... oh yes, it is. 1835, I think that coin is from. It's hard to see. It's a tiny little coin from the East India Company. You know the East India Company isn't England, right? I mean, it's based there, but I don't think it was interchangeable with England. Where are you from? I'm from the East India Company. No, I mean, where are you from? That's what I said. Who's on first? Here's where it gets even stupider, though. And America, whose symbol is the eagle, united. So the lion with the eagle wings is actually a lion with an eagle standing on its back, pretending to be a man. I'm serious. As one of the 4 major end-time powers. The eagle's wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So you have this lion with wings that's actually England, which is symbolized by a lion, or, depending on who you ask, roses, the national flower of England, tea, the national drink of England, or roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, the national dish of England. So, lion is just... The Barbary lion is just one of the choices. You have the symbol of the lion for England, and you have the eagle with plucked wings, which is standing on the lion's back as a man would, because reasons. Where are the wings again? Oh right, they were plucked. So, wait, is he saying that America will be like an eagle, except the eagle gets its wings plucked, and you keep the wings and you throw away the eagle, meaning you have a set of useless decorations, and then you just, what, duct tape them to the lion? For this superpower? What I said earlier about Kent just moving words around to suit his purpose applies here even more. And the heart given to it, I mean, this is fucking nonsense. And of course, here's the end times prophecy, because Kenton is in jail for, breaking the American government's laws, so he has to say it. My best guess is that America will soon cease to be a world power, wings plucked, but there will still be enough of a godly influence from this dead eagle that the English-American alliance will have some heart or compassion, and maybe even be able to finally take a stand. Get it? Because the eagle is standing like a man? That's me adding it, not Kent. But he's just desperate to throw in the right words here. Heart? Oh, heart as a man. Great. Okay. It's taking a stand for God in the wicked world. Here's another thought. You know those eagle wings? Maybe they're not actually eagles. You know who else had a bird as one of its symbols? One of, I say, because obviously the swastika was a better known one, but the eagle was often used by the Nazis, I think, right? And lions, well, the Nazis had a base of operation in Africa, didn't they? There's lions in Africa. There you go. The Nazis were one of the world powers of the end of the world. Wait, we're still alive. That's weird. It should have been 20 years or so, and here we still are. Huh. Amazing. I think the bear, verse 5, is Russia, whose symbol is the bear. Okay, sure. When I think of Russia, I think of Tetris myself. The Kremlin, the stripy dome, whatever. That's what I think of when I think of Russia. But sure, the Russian bear, that's a very common phrase. Okay, great. And the 3 ribs in its mouth, this is where it gets good, represent 3 countries it has dominated or eaten, such as Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And he should have stopped here because now he's adding ribs to the bear's mouth, completely invalidating his point. Or perhaps Ukraine, Belarus, and Georgia. So the sign of the end of the world will be a bear with 3 ribs in its mouth. So let's just make up something. The bear is Russia. And it has 3 ribs. Let's just pretend it's countries Russia has eaten. Because that's sensible if you're on drugs. Okay, and here's a list of a bunch of countries that Russia has dominated or eaten, and just pick a bunch, up to 3. Any 3 of your choice. You can just pick any 3, and from that point on is when we start calculating the end of the world. Kent, you're a fucking idiot. I mean, it bears repeating, even though it's tiresome to repeat that you're an idiot because you're an idiot and everyone knows you're an idiot, but come the fuck on. You should have just given your audience at least the impression of talking over their head and just listed 3 of them, your favorite, and then not given them any difficulties and, wait a second, 6 is more than 3. Even I can count that. The leopard with 4 wings, and it continues to get better, folks, could be some sort of oriental alliance between... You know what I said about picking enough for your story? Between China, Japan, Korea, and a Southeast Asia alliance, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, India, etc. Etc. At the end, because there's even more. Because Kent can't pick because he's so ignorant of world politics. It's not listed explicitly, but the etc. and the fact that it's a Southeast Asia alliance means that Thailand is included in that area specifically. I hope I'm not getting it wrong here, but I think the capital city of Cambodia is called Siem Reap. Siem Reap. Siam, the word Siamese comes from Siam, which is the name Thailand had before it changed to Thailand. It was Siam. Siem Reap means massacre of Siam, because there was a war between Thailand and Cambodia, and the Siamese people, I should say, before it was Thailand, attacked Cambodia and they were massacred. So they decided to rename their capital Siem Reap. I know this because I've been to the place. Pretty cool story, right? Kind of little bit of point of contention, I imagine, when your neighboring country has to deal with you putting a sign on your door like, "My neighbor's massacred in this spot." Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a really powerful Southeast Asia alliance between Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, Laos, or wherever else in the area you wish to add in this 4... Wow, it's... How many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9... 9 and an unspecified amount more choices for 4 wings. So just pick any 4 you like, folks. Kent Hovind has no preference. Any of those 4, and that's... Man. This is part of this. Well, this specifically is probably the biggest reason for me deciding not to skip this chapter after all. That and the fact that it's not just a bunch of prophecies followed by, "It was true because it's in the Bible," and moving on. Verse 6 says, "Dominion was given to it, the leopard with 4 wings." Many certainly feel that China is soon to be the major economic and military power in the world. Well, it is, I think, currently the major economic power in the world. Military, you're still looking at America having about twice as much in spending, so I wouldn't call it the major military power in the world. I think at this point, if China tried anything, they would get spanked. But I'm no expert in world politics or military strength evaluation, so maybe I'm wrong, and I freely own up to that. But don't you just love the way that Kent Hovind hates the Chinese? And also America? If they could get a military or economic alliance with some of the other Oriental nations mentioned, they would indeed be a force to be reckoned with. The problem here, and again, I'm no expert in world politics, but I'm pretty sure about this, nobody likes China. They're assholes. Nobody wants to be their friend, especially not Japan, but all the other countries that China has, bothered for who knows how long. I really doubt they're going to be best buddies. It's like if China had named its capital city Massacre of Our Neighbors or something. They're not really buddy-buddy with anyone in that area. So Kent is worried for some imaginary thing that doesn't seem likely to happen, in my inexpert opinion. My opinion is not expert, and I freely own up to that. I'm, more honest than people like Kent Hovind who state their opinion as fact. But it just feels to me like Kent is worried for nothing. Am I wrong? No animal is named for the fourth beast. It is only described as being dreadful, terrible, strong exceedingly, having great iron teeth, different from all other beasts, and having 10 horns. As I said earlier, there are 3 options for what I can see for this beast. It is either A, the European common market. So that Steve Irwin guy, if he had not been killed by the stingray, his next special would have been on the life and mating habits of the European common market. Or are we still mixing metaphors here? Or a future similar alliance. Or B, 10 world regions. And C, just 10 world regions. Good enough for government work. Some sort of alliance of Muslim nations around the Middle East or the world. I tend to go with option C. Of course you do, Kent. Because you're a racist as well as being a dishonest idiot. Whoever, whatever, and wherever it is, there is another little horn that rises up among the 10 horns. So there's actually 11 horns. I mean, like I said before, I'm not great at mental arithmetic, but if there's 10 horns and another little horn, that's 11. I can count, just not very well. And plucks up 3 of the 10 horns, so now there's 8. 11 minus 3 is 8, right? So is there 10, 11, or 8 horns? Which one is it? Because Kent Hovind, I would not be surprised if he believes it's all 3 simultaneously. He's that kind of an idiot. Much is said later in this chapter and the next 5 chapters about this little horn, yes, he goes on endlessly about it, that has eyes like a man and speaks great things. So we're no longer talking about a beast with 10 horns because one of these has eyes like a man and speaks. If it's the European common market, which part of the animal known as the European common market, I guess it's related to the marmoset perhaps, the uncommon marmoset, European common market. I guess the 10 horns that it doesn't have because it's a figurative beast has another 11th horn that plucks out 3 of the not really... Wow. Excuse me for a second. I need to converse with my emotional support. Oh, Bunny, if I couldn't look at your adorable face, I think I would go insane. He's my little friend. I like him. He's cute. He really does bring me joy. He's been staring at me this entire video and my heart is warmed. My little black atheist heart that I don't actually have because my heart is normal and being an atheist has nothing to do with it, is warmed by his encouraging presence. Isn't it beautiful? He quite obviously represents, not my adorable bunny friend, but the 11th or 8th horn that has eyes and talks, represents the Antichrist or Satan in the flesh, similar to Jesus being God in the flesh. And here we have the reappearance of the dumbest character in all of fiction. Thank you for bringing him back, Kent. No one wanted him here. Though there really were historical kings and rulers of the Middle East region, well done, Kent! This is, again, a historical fact that you accidentally included into your, well, the dictation that you gave to people who can actually read and write. Well done. Accidentally, but well done. That were types, oh, and here he loses the points, or foreshadowings of the Antichrist. Right, because all those kings and rulers, they were just the Antichrist light, or the Antichrist Zero, if you're a drinker of that other soft drink. As was the case with Antiochus Epiphanes, in 174 to 164 BC. So, 10-year-old was the Antichrist and he was a ruler. Not really surprising that Christians go there, but whatever. It seems clear that this little horn is the Antichrist. Are we still mixing metaphors here? Because I can't tell anymore. Who pops up over and over from Daniel, whatever, and later in Revelation. Right, because Revelation was written after Daniel to justify Daniel, and therefore, of course, they would repeat themselves, and I see again that I've sunk quite a bit on my screen. Some have argued convincingly that this Antichrist will rise up out of Syria. I imagine this part was written when the troubles in Syria were starting. And the three kings he takes over by flatteries, in parenthesis with a question mark, flatteries. Biblical passage, because the word flattery is probably used and Kent Hovind needs it to be significant, even though it has nothing to do with the state of the world today. As he waxes great are, toward the south, Jordan, towards the east, Iraq, and toward the pleasant land, Lebanon, near Israel, the pleasant land. So the three kings that the Antichrist takes over will rise up out of Syria and take over the three kings that are Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon, which is actually towards the pleasant land, which is not the pleasant land because Israel is the pleasant land and Lebanon is the one he's actually going to take over. Oh, okay. He says toward, so I guess he's got his ass covered again. Well done with that weasel wording, Kent. I'm not sure if this is true. Of course it's not. Not, of course you're not sure, Kent. Of course it's not true. But it would be wise to keep an eye on that region. I'm sure many people are. Because it's a hotbed of war and other instability. For the most part, because of Christian assholes like yourself, Jews, Israelis, committing a Holocaust against the Palestinians today, and Muslims just fighting against each other and everybody else because they're still in that pissy teenager phase that Christianity went through with the Dark Ages, but they haven't quite gotten out of it yet. They're still wearing black eyeshadow and smoking cloves and that kind of stuff. Muslims are, well, Islam is still in that phase of its lifespan, and man, we can't wait until it just cuts itself, can we? So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are keeping an eye on that region because it is a hotbed of just crazy fucking retardism. Chapters 7 and 12 give many details about the end times, not a single one. I don't even need to read them. They give not a single detail about the end times because there's no such thing. And about the Antichrist, second verse same as the first, who is referred to by various names such as the man of sin and the little horn. Sure. It was my reading of Daniel 7 that really started my quest for answers, you mean ended it, about the end time events. Peter had told us the scoffers would be willingly ignorant. Again, the inconsistent usage of the quotes around these words. The creation, the flood, and the coming judgment. Well, no one is willingly ignorant, as I said, and you're just repeating earlier paragraphs, so watch that other video. I spent 20 years traveling as an evangelist, preaching and teaching. Preaching, yes. Not that second one. On the first two, Creation and the Flood, and millions of copies of my seminar series encircle the globe in over 30 languages to help people understand what the Bible teaches about the creation and flood, but I had avoided the end times issue, mostly because I wasn't clear myself about how the events lined up. Are you done jerking yourself off, Kent? This is written for 4th graders, I'll remind you. Stop jerking off in front of children. I know that's how Eric got so fucked in the head, but please stop doing it. For the first 40 years of my Christian life, I was taught and believed the pre-tribulation rapture theory. Remember now, he's a post-tribulation rapture theory. Pre-wrath, post-trib, that kind of bullshit. That is all I had ever been taught in churches I attended, the college I went to. They didn't teach you that in the college you went to. You never went to college. The books and movies I had seen on the topic, you're illiterate, Kent. You didn't read it in a fucking book. So I never questioned it. Damn right you didn't, Kent. You never questioned a goddamn thing when it came to your fucking Bible, did ya? I read books and heard messages. You know, audiobooks don't count as reading. By all the great prophecy preachers, such as Jack Van Imp. That name is familiar, and I have this vague image of an extremely crazy asshole dancing around on stage, but there's so many of them I can't tell them apart anymore. Salem Kerben, John R. Rice, Schofield's Notes. Is Schofield's Notes a person? Because you didn't capitalize the notes. Just saying. And scores of others. If you're listing a bunch of people, don't refer to someone's notes. Refer to the person. I mean, this just basic sense, which I know you don't have any, but the 8 people who wrote this for you should have had. I read some of the books, no you didn't, and saw the movies in the famous Left Behind series. That's right, Kent Hovind here is admitting that some of the end of the times beliefs he had are based on the Left Behind series, and I challenged myself to watch one of them. I just picked one, and Ray Comfort's sex slave was in it, Kirk Cameron. I think I made it 11 minutes into the video, the movie. It started out with this ongoing war with a soldier charging into a room and telling everyone to escape, and he stays behind to save the others or something, and evil soldiers come in and say, reject God or we'll murder you, and, you know, slightly better acting than that pathetic attempt. Slightly, not much. And the guy says, I'll never, and, you know, it turns out that the thing he stayed behind to defend was a box full of Bibles. That's not even the dumbest part. This is like 40 seconds into the movie. The next 7 minutes, I mean, there was the whole beginning, the introduction, all that stuff, the usual movie title stuff. The opening credits took some time. 40 seconds or so of this stupid setup for Bibles being protected with a soldier's life. And then we move to a double marriage scene by I guess the freedom fighters of God who are not raptured for some reason. And there's Kirk Cameron and a friend of his, and they're both marrying women, and the vows went on for like 7 minutes. And the vows, the way I heard them, the way they were being presented, and the complete lack of enthusiasm in the delivery made me think that the vows were essentially this. I totally don't want to marry you, but, like, we're the last people on Earth, and, like, we have to fuck to make babies, and God would get pissed off if we weren't married first, so I guess I'll marry you. I mean, I don't want to. Ray Comfort will get jealous, but I have to because God, you know how it is, you stupid cunt. Just say I do, and then we'll be able to fucking make disgusting babies in your disgusting vagina. So Kent Hovind takes his cues on the Left Behind series. Why am I not fucking surprised? And there's a list of books, a picture with all the different Left Behind books. Left Behind, Tribulation Force, Nicolay, Soul Harvest, all those, there's like 8 more. It's just, wow. I know that in this paragraph he's saying that he used to believe that and he stopped. But holy fuck, it gets worse. It does get worse from this point on. I read some of the books and saw the movies on the famous Left Behind series, and I somewhat trusted the experts to research the topic and tell me what to believe. Yes, Kent Hovind, Mr. Whatever expert means, trusted the experts who wrote the Left Behind books to tell him how the end times would happen. Need I say more? Then in late 2008, I was reading Daniel 7 and couldn't figure out what looked like contradictions to me. That's because they were contradictions, Kent. Since God wants us to study, whatever study means, right? Am I right, Kent? Am I right? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Say no more. Please say no more. Just never say anything ever again. I asked him for wisdom, another biblical quote that I guess tells you to ask God for wisdom because Kent Hovind can't think for his fucking self. Then again, he can't read, so can't blame him. And read the chapters scores of times to try to find an answer, because if you don't understand something, read it until your eyes glaze over and you can't even see the page anymore and you're so confused. It's like you're drunk and it just, now it makes sense. What was I saying? I don't know. Whatever. There's no contradiction. It's like, wow, it all makes sense to me now. Verse 18 said the saints possessed the kingdom. Then verse 21 said the horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. How could this be? Verse 22 said the saints possessed the kingdom again, and verse 25 said the horn would wear out the saints of the Most High for 3.5 years. Verse 27 says the kingdom is given to the saints again. I'm reading all these for a reason. As my friend Dr. Roland Rasmussen, pastor of Faith Baptist Canoga Park, California, says, I was getting as confused as a termite in a yo-yo, 'cause Kent Hovind is friends with Hicks. And here there's an ad for Rasmussen's stupid book, and who the fuck cares? See his excellent charts on the end times in the back of his dissertation. You mean in his chapters? Or his appendices, or maybe on the dust jacket, or maybe you're sticking, a plastic bag with some gum you found on the street, and inside the plastic bag are these pictures? Oh wait, no, it's some other guy's book, so it's actually competently written, I would assume. The divisions in this book continue to be miserable, by the way. It's an ongoing thing. As I read it over and over, I realized that this chapter was giving the same story 4 different times with different details added or deleted, sort of like 4 coats of paint. Says Kent Hovind, where a normal, intelligent human being would have said, there's 4 fucking stories, the Bible contradicts itself, end of argument. God often uses this technique to teach his word. Yes, he often repeats himself. The difference is, in the other repetitions, the words are just flipped around. I am the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God I am. Something like that. It doesn't add or remove details, changing the story so it's not the same story 4 times. It's different stories, Precept upon precept, line upon line, a quote from Isaiah. When the truth of this dawned on me, I wrote a blog, because Kent Hovind, like many pseudoscientists, whenever he has findings, he doesn't peer review them, he just publishes them out for the public to get drunk off of, called The Paint Job. So if you want to go read it yourself, you're an idiot. What can I say? I photocopied chapter 7 of Daniel and cut it into sections so I could tape them side by side for ease of comparison. I want to know how Kent got, tape in his cell, but maybe, he sucked enough of the guard's cocks to earn him some privileges. Column 1 has verses 1 to 14, column 2 has verses 15 to 18, column 3 is verses 19 to 22, and column 4 verses 23 to 28. I then drew lines between verses that seem to be covering the same topics. I have this vision of a cork postboard in Kent's cell with a bunch of just disjointed Bible passages with those red lines you see in all those conspiracy crazies in the movies. They all have these boards with lines strung up and sharp things put into the corkboard, which is why I know this is an unrealistic vision, because no one would allow Kent to have a sharp object because he's a child. But there's this vision in my head of Kent just meticulously putting these bits of passages and drawing lines between them, because this never happened, obviously. Kent is not interested in putting that much effort into anything, as we've seen. For example, verses 3, blah, 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 so I connected them. By laying them side by side, it was obvious that verses 21 and 25 were adding the detail that the saints would be prevailed against or worn out before they take the kingdom. If that's not what the story actually says, in the order that it says it, you're making shit up. Anyways, isn't it blasphemy or something to tear up the Bible? I mean, I know it's a photocopy, but surely the magical power of the photocopies carries through, right? This discovery of Kent's was the beginning of his transformation. The first quotes were mine, these are his. From believing in the pre-tribulation rapture back to the historic position the church has taught for nearly 2,000 years, namely that we will be here for the tribulation but will be raptured out before the wrath of God falls. More on that in Appendixter 4. Kent continues his tradition of hinting that he'll have a point sometime in the future but never actually getting to it. While reading Daniel's other visions, I noticed that some other part of Daniel covered the same topics and added a 5th coat of paint. So now we have 5 stories that don't match. So I added a 5th column to my scroll. Other parts of Daniel made up columns 6 to 9. So now he's on 9 different scrolls. Scrolls, whatever scroll means. It was easy to find the same topics discussed each time, so I connected them with lines as well. The insanity levels are rising here, folks. To me, the conclusion was clear. I bet it was. There would be a time of tribulation where the saints would be given into the hand of Antichrist, exactly as the story says. As Job was given into Satan's hand by God, by the way, on a bet with the devil, which God is an enemy of but somehow hangs out with. Makes sense. Many or even most would be killed if they did not deny their faith, if they stayed true to the Lord. Stephen, Zechariah, John the Baptist, Peter, Paul, and even Jesus himself were executed for not denying their faith. No, they were executed for having a different faith, I assume from the implication in this passage. I don't know who the fuck Stephen, Zechariah, I don't know how John the Baptist died. I don't know who the other two are. Peter, Paul, did they die for those reasons in this stupid story made up by the Bible authors? I don't know, and I don't care. But Jesus, why would Jesus have denied his faith? I mean, if they killed him because he was the Son of God, surely it's not because he refused to deny his faith. It was because they were afraid of him. And actually in the Bible, Jesus is executed because the Romans consider him a threat because Judas ratted him out to the Romans. And anyways, shouldn't you be grateful that Jesus got executed? This point has been brought up before, but if the entire point of Jesus was to get nailed to the tree, why are you bitching that he got nailed to the fucking tree? You can't complain that you're getting what you want when you're getting what you want. More Daniel and Revelation each give the number as 10,000 times 10,000 or 100 million martyrs that are before God's throne. It seems to me that these are the ones who are killed for their faith. Yes, their faith. They got killed in the faith. To the Antichrist. Faith and resistance to the Antichrist, right. Because this future hypothetical story is true because it actually happened. See Appendix 4C for the middle of the 7-year period for more. It's going to be crazy because he hints at what the 7-year period is, and it's stupid. Columns 10, 11, and 12 on my ever-widening chart, meaning Kent Hovind descended even further into his insanity. Now I'm skipping a page here, and most of a page, and moving to Daniel's vision of the 70 weeks. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people, and upon thy holy city, Jews, Daniel's people, city, Jerusalem, and to 1, finish the transgression, 2, make an end of sins, isn't that Jesus? And 3, to make a reconciliation for iniquity by ending the world, 4, to bring in everlasting righteousness by ending everything, and to 5, seal up the vision and prophecy. What vision and prophecy? And to 6, anoint the most holy. Wow, what is all this? Says the next page, mirroring my own thoughts, minus the wow, which is actually pronounced more like, what is all this? Many books have been written on because Kent needs the argument from authority and popularity on his side. There's a whole bunch of people talking about this. No one that matters. So I'll ask you to spend some time in commentaries to get all the details you want, but for now, let's look at the big picture, because Kent is not a details person. The word week here is used here is like the word dozen. A dozen means 12. Week here means a group of 7. No, a week here means 7 days. I know he's trying to say that the word week actually means 7, but there's already a word for 7 in Hebrew, and I imagine it's not the same word for week. By comparing Daniel, bunch of Daniels, and Revelation, it is obvious that time means a year. Most Bible scholars agree that these weeks in Daniel are groups of 7 years. Thus, 70 weeks, where the fuck did he get 70 weeks from? Would be 490 years. Most scholars also agree that prophetic years are 360 days each, not the 365 and a quarter days we have now. The years we have now. Years don't last 360 years. That's 360 days. They just don't. They can't, because that's not how the fucking planet goes around the fucking sun. You cannot make up years that have an arbitrary length just to support your stupid prophecies. And I bet this doesn't even help you. But sure, let's go with 360 prophetic years, which most scholars agree is what they are. Plenty of books and commentaries, again, argument from popularity. So these 490 years or 70 weeks, what 70? You were talking about 7 earlier. 7 is not 70. I suck at math, and I can tell you as much. So these 70 weeks are critical to understanding the future. From verse 24, we see that the 7 weeks, which Kent mistakenly believes is 70 weeks, end with the most holy being anointed. By the way, I mean, I know the numbers just keep not adding up, and because I'm not great at math done in my head, I'm going to get really confused really fast here. 70 weeks is actually 7 years. Weeks are groups of 7 years. Okay, so there's 7 weeks? A dozen? Dozen means 7 times 12, which would be more than 70. It would be, what, 84 weeks? Which would be more than 490 years? Which means none of this makes any sort of sense. Now, maybe I'm just reading it wrong, but this is Kent Hovind. We know he doesn't know how to count. He's even worse at it than I am. And I suck, as I have made abundantly clear. I'm horrible at math, but... Oh, okay, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people, but it's a week, and it's 7. 70 times 7. Weeks are years according to... It just doesn't make any sense. It's all a house of cards propped up on nothing. It makes no sense. I mean, oh, sure, 7 weeks, that means 70 years. Times 70, because whatever, and that's 490 years. Because who the fuck cares? And I know 70 times 70 is not 490, but it may as well be in this fucking passage. Nothing makes sense. And Kent Hovind just believes all of this verbatim because it makes no sense, and Kent Hovind is an idiot who has a wall scroll with 10 different versions of the same story on his cell wall in jail. The Persian Emperor Artaxerxes, maybe the one that married Queen Esther, made a decree in 446 BC to rebuild Jerusalem, and the 40-week clock started ticking. Because reasons. It may be the reason verse 25 divides the 69-week time period into 7 weeks and 62 weeks, except it's not 69 weeks, it's 70 weeks. Where the fuck did 69 come from? If that is not the reason that 7 weeks are split off of the 62 weeks, I don't know why they are. Because reasons. At any rate, 69 weeks after the command was given to rebuild Jerusalem, Jesus rode the donkey into... No, he didn't ride the donkey. He rode the 2 donkeys because the person who made up this story misread the original Old Testament prophecy. Kent, you should know this. You have read the Bible, right? You have, right? Because I've read this passage, and it does say he rode into Jerusalem on the back of 2 donkeys, which he ordered his followers to go into town and steal and bring back so he could fulfill this prophecy. So even when they made it up, it doesn't help their case. And offered himself as king. He wept as he looked at the city. If they had only read their Bible, they would have known that this was the day, and he was the one. The people examined him for 3 days and rejected and crucified him instead. And a better fate could not have been deserved by any dumber person. Although, Texas, if Jesus had arrived in Texas, he would have been accused of, whatever, and given the death penalty. You crossed the street wrong. You're mentally ill. Go to the chair. The fulfillment here with the selecting of the Passover lamb is perfect because post hoc rationalization. Why not? And I'm going to increase my height a little bit again. Genesis 22:8 has an amazing prophecy that God will offer himself, another proof of the deity of Christ. It's not. As the lamb. Jesus wasn't a lamb, you moron! This can only be seen in the King James Bible because all the other Bibles are liars and they're evil and I hate them because I'm Kent Hovind and I have a wall scroll of crazy conspiracy bullshit. All the new versions really messed that one up. The NKJV has God offering for himself a lamb, as if God needs a sacrifice for his sin. No. He's offering himself to himself, right? This sentence is grammatically correct. It's a perhaps an older form of English, an older way of writing. But if you understand that older way of writing, which Kent would know if he were not illiterate, God offering for himself a lamb in himself would make sense. And of course Kent isn't going to quote from the NKJV. I mean, he'd go to hell if he did that, or he would be accurate for once in his life. It's hard to tell. There's a wonderful double prophecy here, so it's twice as stupid. Abraham is saying God blah blah, skipping this, who cares. The 70th week of Daniel. And here we get to more. I'm going to get to a point some point in the future, but for now I'm just making the point that I'm getting to a point from Kent Hovind. He loves this tactic. The 70th week of Daniel, Daniel 9:27, is a key verse to understanding the final 7 years. The final week begins when he, the Antichrist or little horn of Daniel, Revelation, no quotes around Antichrist or little horn. Oh, sorry, the quotes were around man of sin before. Sorry. Confirms the covenant with many for 1 week. So are we still talking about groups of 7 years now? In the midst of the week, 3.5 years. Oh, so that's where the years thing comes from, because the temple has to be standing for 3.5 years. Right, okay. Now it fails to make sense. Well, it doesn't now do that. It never did, but now we understand why it made no sense before. He breaks a covenant and the time of desolation begins. The Bible does not tell us who the Antichrist confirms this covenant with. Right, it just says many. Because reasons. If you're unspecific, you can never be proven wrong. Like kinds. The fuck does that mean? Even Kent Hovind doesn't know. Since the temple in Jerusalem is desolated 3.5 years later, most scholars feel this covenant must have something to do with allowing the Jews to build their temple. Now I vaguely remember that the temple would be desolated for 3.5 years. That the angels would lose for 3.5 years or something like that. It wouldn't be at the end of 3.5 years the temple is desolated. Maybe go back a little bit into the video. I can't scroll because there's no convenient buttons on the left side of this PDF to skip the different chapters. But yeah, it's just, I vaguely remember that the 3.5 years are how long it's desolated, not when. Most scholars feel this covenant must have something to do with allowing the Jews to build their temple. They have not had one since it was destroyed in 70 AD by the Roman Emperor Titus. Because why not? Everything else so far has been just making shit up for reasons, and why not continue the trend? Because, oh, there's going to be a covenant. What will it be about? Who knows? Who will it be done with? Who the fuck knows? So it must be a covenant with the Muslims to let the Jews rebuild the temple so it can be destroyed. That is literally what this is saying. They don't know who, they don't know what, but it has to be that the Jews are going to build a temple so that 3.5 years later, or for 3.5 years, it will be desolated. One theory is that the Antichrist will be a major political leader in the United Nations. Here's the UN conspiracy bullshit, folks. You knew it had to be coming. If you didn't know it, I pity you. No, not pity. What's that word? I'm jealous of you. Please give me your ignorance of this conspiracy bullshit. I need it. I desperately need it. Like, I don't want to know this crap. Another theory is that the many refers to the Arab League of Nations, since their mosques are now on the Temple Mount, where the temple needs to go. So see, this is more, is it Dominionist or Zionist? I forget exactly. Christians, many of the people who wanted Israel to be manufactured in 1948 by the United Nations needed the Jews to be in Israel so that Jesus could come back, because Jesus can't come back unless the Jews are in Israel, where, according to the Bible, they will be murdered for rejecting Jesus at the time of the rapture. And that's why Christians wanted Israelis, Jews, to go to Israel and have their Holy Land so that God could murder them. Not all people, just some of them. I don't even know what percentage, but there is a faction of Christians who desperately wanted the Jews to be in Israel so that God would murder them when Jesus came back. And because Jesus couldn't come back before the Jews were in Israel again. I'm not even joking. And here you have evidence of that by Kent saying their mosques are built on the place where the Jews have to have their temple before God destroys it, so that Jesus can come back and save Kent Hovind's very important asshole. Not very important. Again, what's that word? Distended. Many believes there is room to put the temple on a 10-acre plot north of the two mosques. The Temple Mount is about 37 acres. Now, there's a picture of the United Nations symbol in the side of the screen, and a little bit lower there's a Google image satellite photo of the Temple Mount, I guess, with a compass rose and A and B, I guess, because reasons. There's a mosque pictured, and there's this blue line where I imagine Kent thinks they can build their temple here. How desperate is this asshole for the end of the world to arrive? Think about this. He and many others are plotting for a building to be erected so a magic man in the sky can destroy it and then end the world. I know. I've said it twice and you're probably thinking, wait, it's not God who's going to destroy the temple, it's the Antichrist. The Antichrist, which is the son of Satan, according to Kent Hovind earlier, who is going to come back to fight God, even though God can just out of existence. Meaning God would be permitting this non-human, so there's no violation of free will, to exist. He's endorsing it. He's allowing it to happen, and he's okay with that. So, yeah, God wants the temple destroyed, is what you should take away from this. This is why the whole end times thing is... I can't even make jokes about it, because it's sickening. These people are desperate to commit suicide. And a suicide bomber is going to kill himself and he's going to kill a few other people, right? That's the point of a suicide bomber. You go into a bus filled with children, you blow yourself the fuck up, and you end the life of people who have no reason to be killed by you. Doomsday lovers, like Kent Hovind here, wants to blow himself up along with every single other person on the planet. That's you, that's me, that's everybody else. That's what everyone means. They are the ultimate suicide bombers. Muslims look nice compared to these assholes. They don't, Christians don't blow themselves up, most of them. But they're working on the biggest bomb on the planet, and they're looking forward to strapping it to their dicks. I can't make jokes about this. It is the most horrible thing I can think of right now. It's just horrible. I'm out of words. I really have nothing more to say on that because it's just so evil. Keep an eye out for a treaty that allows Israel to rebuild the temple, because that's likely to happen, right? Israel hasn't been shooting down peace treaties with the Muslims for, 7 decades now. They're so willing to make a treaty to rebuild the temple, except every time there's an opening, they immediately fuck it up by assassinating some Palestinian leader. And if one is made, start the clock ticking again for that final week, 7 years. So Kent Hovind thinks that the end of the world will be 7 years from whenever Israel is allowed to rebuild a temple on the Temple Mount, which will never happen so long as Muslims exist. Right. It may be the Muslims will offer to trade the Jews 10 acres on the Temple Mount to build their temple for the entire West Bank, because, Kent hates Palestinians, and the West Bank belongs to the Jews, but if you give us the West Bank, we'll let you build your stupid house. Plus $5 gazillion, Kent adds. Israel wants that spot bad enough to pay any price. We'll see. Yes, because gazillion is an actual number, Kent. Of course, I don't know when any treaty will be made, or even if they make one. And the grammar here is incorrect again, the commas are in the wrong places, but I don't know when any treaty will be made, or even if they make one, but when they do, start the clock. Incoherent dipshit. Whether it will be made known to the public. So, actually, I read that wrong, and I did it in my first read-through. Or even if they make one, whether it will be made known to the public. I'm pretty sure when construction starts on a synagogue or a temple on the Temple Mount, people will be able to just look and see. Just saying, Kent. But if God is working on some giant 7,000-year calendar where one day equals 1,000 years, we should be getting really close. But Kent, you rejected day-age creationism. Remember? No, I didn't think so, you inconsistent bastard. Since Herod died in 4 BC and killed all the babies 2 years of age or less, many think Jesus was born in or around the year 6 BC and crucified in or around the year 28 AD. There's no year 0. Correct, there's no year 0. I looked it up in this particular calendar. The, oh man, dummy... I forgot the name of the calendar we're using. I've always just called it le calendrier julien because it's based on Julius Caesar or something. Yeah, so Jesus was born 6 years before Christ, according to Kent here. This is true also. A lot of people put the date of birth of Jesus not at the date of birth of Jesus to fit it into their stupid narrative, because they have to, because it's just made up. It's like they're so close to realizing it's all bullshit, but they're just not there. And it would just take a little push, but they're so stupid, they're so brain dead that they can't just see how stupid it is to say Jesus was born 6 years before he was born. Many scholars believe it could be that his return will be based on his crucifixion or resurrection rather than his birth. Right, because if the earlier date doesn't work for the end of the world, push it back a little. You'll be right the second or third time. Right, Harold Camping? Right, Pat Robertson? Right, Kent Hovind? Oh wait, you haven't gotten to your dates yet. Israel became a nation again by fiat, I'm adding, in 1948 when the United Nations basically gave them the land of the Palestinians, told the Palestinians, nice house you got here, get the fuck out, we're putting Jews here, as an apology for Hitler, basically. I know I'm simplifying, and a lot of people will consider that to be anti-Semitic, but the fact that the Jews were the victims of a Holocaust does not give them permission to commit a Holocaust against the Palestinians. And if you look at a map of Palestine before 1948 and a map of Palestine today, you will very quickly discover calling it a Holocaust is not an exaggeration. I'm not apologetic at all for it. Israel becoming a nation in 1948 was one of the dumbest moves of the United Nations, and fuck knows they've made a lot of stupid mistakes. Which is why considering them to be the world power that the Antichrist will rise up into is ridiculous at best. If the strange verse in Psalm 90:10 regarding the 70 or 80 years, so now there's 80 years before we fly away ties in here, that would add up to 2018 or 2028. I'm gonna really keep an eye on Israel and that Temple Mount. Please do, Kent. Pack your bags, bring your idiot children with you, and if she's still alive, and I hope she found herself another boyfriend and divorced your worthless ass, your stupid wife, who gave you those stupid children, if she's not a sheep, well, she's a sheep, but I mean a literal sheep, not a figurative one, pack up your family and what property you own, even though you don't own any because God owns everything. Pack your bags and get the fuck over to Israel and just sit on the Temple Mount, put yourself a lawn chair there, sit in it, eat your meals and just stare at the Temple Mount for the rest of your life and never bother us the fuck again, you fucking asshole. Just do it. Just go and keep a watch. We'll thank you when you're finally proven right. Don't tell him. Just go watch it. Just go there and leave us the fuck in peace. Please, Kent. Since the 70-year tribulation comes before that, we could stay in Daniel and study these passages forever. Yeah, there's nothing to study in these passages. It's a stupid made-up story. That's the end of it. But Kent doesn't believe that because he's an idiot. Skipping from chapter 12, moving down. The 12th Imam of Islam. And here there's I guess it's a book by Abu Yusuf Tawfiq Chowdhury, Coming of the Mahdi, which is the Antichrist according to Kent Hovind and the guided one according to the Muslims. It is more than just interesting that the Muslims are looking for their 12th Imam to come and guide mankind into a time of peace. No, it is not more than just interesting. It is not interesting at all. Not a bit. The Muslims believe in the same God you do, cunt, and the Jews that you are a spin-off cult of, the same way that Islam is a spin-off cult of Christianity. You all believe, the Abrahamic faiths, that there's going to be some magic man who's going to come and save you in the future. The details vary a little bit, not a lot. And you're all idiots for it. So it's not more than just interesting. It's not just interesting, it's not interesting at all. But this section here, and I think it's the last section of this appendixter, this section here contains the worst hypocrisy coming out of Kent Hovind's face hole yet. It's actually, it pissed me off a little bit when I read it the first time. So the 12th Imam to come and guide mankind into a time of peace. He's not mentioned in the Quran, but is mentioned in the Hadith, the traditional sayings of Muhammad. According to the Hadith, the Muslims are looking for the Mahdi, or guided one, to come as the prophesied Redeemer of Islam. And just as a personal note, the Mahdi here makes me think of Muad'Dib in the Dune books by Frank Herbert, so I guess there might be some source there, or maybe it's just a gigantic coincidence. Would be interesting to find out. I'll have to remember to look it up. He will be anointed by Allah to be the perfect leader of mankind in every way. Remind you of anyone? He will be a gifted speaker. Remind you of anyone? He will stay on earth 7, 9, or 19 years. Kent Hovind probably believes it's all three at the same time, depending on which prophecy they follow. Kind of like how there's 12 scrolls in Kent Hovind's conspiracy book. He will make a peace treaty with Israel for 7 years. Does this say so in the Hadith, or is Kent just making this up? I don't care. I'm just asking the question, because I don't think he's being honest here. According to Muslims, the Mahdi will rid the world of all non-Muslim thinking, by force, and all injustice and tyranny, and establish a new world order. To his credit, New World Order here is not capitalized. He will work beside the lesser prophet Jesus. He will force the world to use the Muslim calendar of 12 months of 30 days each, all with Muslim names. Think to change the times. The time wouldn't change, Kent. The numbers of the months would, and after a longer period of time, January would be in the middle of June. But why this focus on Muslim names? Do you think that the Muslim calendar would use Russian names? Maybe Taoist names? Maybe the last month of this 12-month, 30-day calendar would be Lord Xenu, and the other 11 would be L. Ron Hubbard, with the 29th day of February being Tom Cruise, perhaps. No shit the Muslim calendar would have Muslim names, you fucking retard. There are variations of the details in the various sects of Islam, but the general idea is the same. They say the Mahdi will be a young man of medium stature. Remind you of anyone? With a handsome face and black hair. He will have a broad forehead and pointed nose. Remind you of Jafar from Aladdin? 'Cause he's evil? He will not come in an odd year, because arbitrary dates in a calendar are totally important to the all-powerful eternal God of the universe, and his evil villain sidekick. He will announce his presence in Mecca between the corners of the Kaaba and the Station of Abraham, and then he will go to Kufa in Iraq. I wonder, and again, this is just pointless speculation on my part, I wonder if there's a law in or around Mecca where you can't be a tourist and go to Mecca and say, "Hi," somewhere between the corner of the Kaaba and the Station of Abraham, and then take a cab to Kufa in Iraq. I wonder if there's a law preventing people from doing that. Because I know how religious minds work, sadly, because I've dealt with a lot of them, and these people love to legislate for stupid reasons. So I would not be surprised to find out that there is in fact such a specific and stupid law. Most accounts say the 12th Imam, the Mahdi, is a spiritual savior of the world. Again, remind you of anyone? Minus the Jafar nose and, hooked talons. And the hooked talons come in a second. He was born to the 11th Imam, Hassan al-Askan, and went into hiding at the age of 5 in the 13th century. Now, I need to... Oh, I got rid of it. Well, okay, I'll just do my best to remember. Some say 868 AD. The 12th Imam has been hiding in wells or caves since then. He was 12 feet tall, if he was an inch, with long pointed claws that could tear the flesh off of a man's skin. Glowing red eyes he had, red like the shock of red hair on his head. And his breath stank so much it would rot you from the insides. My accent kind of slipped into several ones there, but I didn't practice enough. He's a descendant of Muhammad through his daughter Fatima. Catholic connection here. No, there's not. You stupid fucking moron. See, the Prophet from Jack Chick, of course, because Jack Chick. May as well just keep reading Left Behind, Kent, you fucking stupid moron. He will appear after 3 years of world chaos, tyranny, and oppression, which there hasn't been in the past, what is it, 8 centuries since this stupid fucking legend was begun by stupid idiots? No, there's never been world chaos, tyranny, or oppression since then? Ongoing? More than 3 years? No, it's just... He will rule the world and bring peace for 7 years to those who submit to Allah and the only acceptable religion of Islam. Those who refuse to accept Islam will have the sword of the Imam decisively brought down on their neck. Those who will not submit must be beheaded. Hey, motherfucker. Luke 19 motherfucking 27. But those enemies of mine who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me. Do you want me to read the King James Version Bible for you, cunt? But those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. You fucking hypocrite. Yeah, those evil Muslims want to kill everyone who disobeys their prophet. Sounds familiar much? Douchebag? Get someone to read the fucking Bible to you integrally, you fucking asshole. He will conquer Jerusalem, the city they believe is really the holy city of Palestine and is occupied by Zionists who must be destroyed. And you don't believe it's occupied by evildoers who must be destroyed, you fucking shameless hypocrite? No, it's completely different. Double standards are okay when it's Christians doing it, isn't it, fucking asshole? And set up a world caliphate there and will proclaim himself as world ruler. Remind me again what the rapture is about, you fucking asshole. This is the part that really got my blood boiling. The hypocrisy of it all. It's just... He will be able to perform miracles. Sound familiar much? Douchebag? And signs to show people he is from Allah. All Arabs will rise up and throw off the authority of foreigners and take possession of their land. When the Mahdi appears with his company of chosen ones, the one-eyed Dajjal, the Muslim Antichrist, they don't have an Antichrist. I know you're trying to simplify for your 4th grade idiots, but come the fuck on. Just say the Muslim equivalent of. You'd be accurate for once. And the Sufyani will also appear. The Dajjal will fool the Jews into thinking he is their Messiah. The two forces will fight one final apocalyptic battle where Mahdi and his forces will prevail, because God is powerless before the might of a person who's not actually a person because he's the son of Satan. The Quran warns Muslims to flee from Dajjal and ignore anything he says. Well, good for them. The current Iranian leader, Shiite Muslim President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, see, well, fuck you. I don't give a fuck if I mispronounce your name, you fucking asshole. Fuck you. Why am I apologizing to this douchebag? I'm Canadian. We're polite, I guess. Sorry. He sees himself as the chosen one to bring forth the 12th Imam. Well, gee. A religious person who's faithful believes that he's the one who can bring forth his Messiah? Say it isn't so. He is totally dedicated to help bringing the 12th Imam of the world by bringing the world to a state of chaos and terror, subjugation to the will of Allah. The Mahdi will require violence to conquer the world. Motherfucker, Luke 19:27, go fuck yourself. And of course, inset is a picture of, you guessed it, Iranian leader, who is no longer the leader, Shiite Muslim Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, standing behind the front part of the United Nations with the symbol under him, because remember, the United Nations is the one that's gonna be controlled by the 10 Muslim, the 10-horned beast with 11 horns or 8 horns, and before Mahdi comes there will be a red death and a black death. The red death is from the sword and the black death from plague. Revelation quote! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Skipping. Oh. You know, earlier when I said Kent Hovind was racist, perhaps some of you thought this is unfair of me to say because Kent is not overtly racist. I remember when I did say it, I thought to myself, I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but come on. He's a white Christian. He's a fundamentalist. He believes literally in the Bible. He believes ice can float in the sky. Of course he's going to be racist, right? The last paragraph before the summary of Daniel's prophecies, which I'll be for the most part skipping over, because it's the end of the chapter. We're almost done. A terrorist is one who brings terror. He finds what his enemies are afraid of and does that. You mean like finding a banana if you're Ray Comfort? There is a story, not sure if the details are true, but the concept sure is, of General Black Jack Pershing fighting the Muslim terrorists in the Philippines in the 1890s. He knew the Muslims were terrorized by the idea that contact with pig blood or fat would doom them to hell forever, so he had all his soldiers dip their bullets in pig blood. If I was a soldier in one of those countries, I would let them think I had hollow points packed with pig's blood. Because if you're getting shot with hollow points, what you're really worried about is pig's blood. Maybe all of us should pour bacon grease around our property and dip our bullets and knives in pig blood or fat. Cheap protection. You rich motherfucker, if you think pouring bacon grease all over your property and dipping bullets and knives in pig blood or fat is cheap, I gotta tell you, you have never tried to buy pig blood. The guy behind the counter, when you tell him it's for your secret atheist ritual, I didn't say anything. I wish I could edit this video. Fuck, I'm at the end. Cheap protection indeed. If that doesn't convince you that Kent Hovind is racist, I mean, okay, he's intolerant of Muslims, right? Does Kent Hovind know that not all Muslims are Arabs? He doesn't know ice doesn't fly. Summary of Daniel's prophecies. Chapter 2 gives us the big picture of nothing at all. Chapter 7-12 gives lots of detail about the final kingdom, where the whole story is just made up. John, don't be surprised when Christians are not raptured out until the end of the tribulation time, because when the tribulation starts, you know, just because you don't get raptured right away doesn't mean you're not going to get raptured. Just keep waiting in this hypothetical end of the world that will never happen. Now, I'm going to correct my mistake from last video and actually address what we read here. We've read a bunch of nonsense written by an imaginary person in a magic book that is not actually magic. How Kent Hovind believes any of this informs him of what is going to happen, what on earth is going to happen, for heaven's sake. What in this entire chapter tells us what is going to happen. The very closest Kent Hovind came to making a point in this entire fucking stupid thing is accidentally pointing out that Jesus Christ and the 12th Imam are the exact same person. And also of saying that he doesn't know when the actual end of the world will be, but it's probably in 2018 or 28? So he doesn't know when it is. He tells you, wait for this hypothetical thing to maybe happen, and then you'll know. So believe it now, because I need to sell books, says Kent Hovind. And then he never actually makes his fucking case, and just says, maybe these two dates. The same way every doomsday prophesizer, or prophesier? Doomsday alarmist, that's a better word, the same way every doomsday alarmist has done throughout human history. There's a list in Wikipedia. I usually just Google the keywords for it. There's a list of prophesied end of the world dates. The list is hilariously long and features some of the most retarded examples of, well, Kent Hovind-like stupidity you could ever hope for. Did I cover it in another video? I don't remember anymore. Man, the details escape my mind. So Daniel said the next thing we need to watch for is a treaty that allows Israel to rebuild their temple. Did he actually say that? I bet not. When that happens, and it won't, we can restart the 70-week clock that was put on hold when Israel rejected. Wait, are you going to restart the clock? Or was it put on hold and you just keep going from that point on? Consistency. A word that Kent Hovind doesn't know how to read. Same as all the other ones. When Israel rejected their Messiah nearly 2,000 years ago, because that's really the issue. The Jews rejected Jesus, so the timeout clock was put on hold for reasons that are never covered in this fucking Chapendixter number 3. Well done, Kent. We will cover more about that treaty and what happens after that in Appendix 4. That's more than enough for me. Next time, more hyphenated words and even more Daniel bullshit.